Let me ask you something simple. When winter arrives, do you feel lighter instead of heavier? While others complain about the cold, do you feel calmer, clearer, more like yourself? If yes, this isn't random. People who prefer winter over summer often have a very specific psychological wiring, and most of them don't even realize it. Here's the first truth. Winter removes pressure. Summer is loud. It demands energy, smiles, social plans, movement, exposure. Winter, on the other hand, gives permission to slow down, to stay inside, to think, to be quiet without explaining yourself. People who prefer winter often have internally rich minds. Their stimulation doesn't come from noise or constant activity. It comes from thoughts, reflection, imagination, and depth. Cold weather creates a natural boundary between them and the world, and that boundary feels safe. Psychologically, these people are less dependent on external validation. They don't need sunshine, crowds, or excitement to feel alive. They feel alive when their inner world has space to breathe. Another reason winter feels better to them is emotional regulation. Hot weather increases physical stress. Heart rate rises. The nervous system stays alert. Small irritations feel bigger. Cold weather, however, naturally calms the body. It lowers sensory overload. People who prefer winter often feel overwhelmed easily, not because they're weak, but because they process deeply. They notice. Everything sounds, emotions, shifts. In energy, winter reduces that noise. There's also a strong connection between winter, preference, and introversion, not shyness, but depth. Introverts recharge alone. Winter aligns perfectly with that need. Less forced social interaction. Less pressure to perform happiness. But here's something most people don't talk about. Winter lovers often grew up learning how to rely on themselves. Emotionally, they're comfortable sitting with their thoughts. They don't panic in silence. They don't need distraction to escape discomfort. Summer pushes people outward. Winter pulls people inward. And those who prefer winter usually trust their inner world more than the external one. There's also a subtle emotional honesty tied to winter. In summer, people feel pressured to look happy, to enjoy life publicly. In winter, emotions are allowed to be quiet, heavy, or unresolved without explanation. Winter doesn't demand a performance. Psychologically, people who love winter tend to value authenticity over appearance. They care less about how things look and more about how they feel. They don't romanticize happiness. They respect, calm. Another key trait is high self-awareness. Winter gives space to reflect, and people who enjoy it are often already reflective. They ask themselves hard questions. They revisit memories. They analyze experiences. That's why many writers, thinkers, planners, and emotionally intelligent people feel more productive in winter. The cold doesn't distract them, it sharpens them. So if you prefer winter, it doesn't mean you're antisocial, boring, or negative. It means your psychology values depth.com and emotional clarity over constant stimulation. And this is just the surface. Because winter preference also reveals how you handle pain, growth, and emotional safety. And that's where things get really interesting. Here's the part that surprises most people. Those who prefer winter are often emotionally stronger than they appear. Not louder, not dominant, but resilient. Winter teaches patience. You wait for warmth. You wait for light. You accept discomfort without panic. People who enjoy winter tend to have this same emotional pattern. They don't rush healing, growth, or decisions. They understand that not everything needs to feel good immediately, psychologically. This points to high distress tolerance. They can sit with sadness, boredom, uncertainty, or loneliness without needing to escape it. Instantly, summer culture tells you to Distract yourself. Winter teaches you to endure and transform. Another major trait is control over emotional boundaries. Cold weather naturally creates distance, fewer interactions, smaller circles. People who prefer winter often prefer fewer, deeper connections instead of many shallow ones. They don't open up easily, not because they're cold-hearted, but because emotional access matters to them. This is also why many winter lovers are extremely loyal once they trust someone. They don't collect people, they commit carefully. There's also a link between winter preference and overthinking it. Night. Longer nights mean more thinking, more reflection, more mental activity. People who love winter don't fear this. They're used to living in their minds. They often replay conversations, analyze emotions, search for meaning. This can be exhausting, but it also makes them emotionally intelligent. Another psychological reason is sensitivity to overstimulation. Bright light, heat, sweat, crowds. These drain people who have sensitive nervous systems. Cold, darkness, and quiet regulate them. Winter gives their brain what it needs: fewer inputs, more clarity. Many people who prefer winter also had to grow up fast emotionally. They learned early how to self-soothe, self-entertain, and self-regulate. Winter mirrors that inner independence. There's also a subconscious association with safety. Blankets, warm drinks, closed doors, low light. These create a sense of protection. People who value emotional safety more than excitement often prefer winter without realizing why. And here's the deepest part. Winter lovers are often future-oriented thinkers. They plan. They prepare. They think long-term. Summer lives in the moment. Winter thinks ahead. That's why winter preferring. People often seem serious, reserved, or distant, but internally they're constantly building something: understanding, resilience, purpose. They don't need constant joy. They need meaning. So if you're someone who waits for winter instead of fearing it, understand this. Your mind is wired for depth. Your emotions are built for endurance. Your comfort comes from clarity, not chaos. You don't avoid warmth. You just don't depend on it. And in a world addicted to noise, people like you quietly become the strongest ones in the room. If this felt personal, it's because it was.